So I don't know about you, but I grew up learning that my body was something shameful, and particularly my reproductive organs were something dirty. I learned that sexual desire was something sinful and wrong, and something that was only permissible in certain situations, presumably in the context of marriage with another person, and that lovemaking by yourself was something to be avoided. And to all of that I say, is it any wonder that we as a world are so fucked up right now? So hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. If we haven't encountered each other before, my name is Kaylin. I'm an ecstatic spirituality life coach. I'm the author of a couple books, and I host this YouTube channel, Ecstatic Self, where we explore the intersection of spirituality and sexuality. How do we cultivate a sense of belonging, and how do we come to understand our true integral self? And if you haven't yet, please do hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it to be alerted about upcoming videos that I post. So, title of this video, Your Penis is a Gift. And I'm going to talk about penises because that's my experience. That's what I've got this lifetime to be aware of. I'm sure all of this also translates to vaginas or whatever it is you've got, but I cannot speak from personal experience to those things. Now, I grew up in Midwest America. I grew up to a Christian family, and pretty much everybody around me was Judeo-Christian for the most part. And very early on, I learned the concept of sin. Sometimes the concept of sin can be boiled down to whatever it is that your mother doesn't want you to do. But more broadly and more aptly, this notion of sin was applied to our bodies, our desires, even our births. How many of us grew up with this notion of original sin, that because our parents had sex to conceive us, we were born sinful beings. We were born broken, we were born less than, and no matter what we do, we will never approach the magnificence of God the Creator. I don't know about you, but I find that really frustrating. Because often these people, these Christians, will in a breath or two later say something along the lines of, but you were made in God's image. So explain to me how I can be made in God's image and yet parts of me are sinful. Like if I'm made in God's image, then that implies God has a penis or a vagina or both. It means that God presumably then enjoys sex, since sexual pleasure is an inherent quality of these organs. It means that perhaps we are divine, perfect, holy, and wonderful as we are, and there's nothing about us that is inherently broken or wrong. Woo, that's a little bit of a radical concept coming from that paradigm, and we're gonna dive into that, but just suffice it to say now, I think many of us who grew up in this sort of modality learned to be ashamed of ourselves, learned to keep parts of ourselves private, learned that we're not in fact the perfect beings that God intended us to be. And I don't think things are a hell of a lot better in modern Eastern spiritual traditions either. You know, even though you can go to India and see Shiva lingas and yonis, these depictions of godly genitals, most modern day Hindus will say, oh no, that is not God's penis, that's cosmic unification. And it is cosmic unification, it is the unformed consciousness, and at the same time it's also God's genitals, and you are worshiping it. So we are at a time on this planet where there is a tremendous amount of phobia around our bodies, around our sexuality, around our sexual desires, around pleasure, around orgasm, and frankly, I think it's crap. I mean, how often can you tell people you're broken, you're sinful, you're wrongly made, you're indecent for all of these things you came into the planet with? Like, you were born this way. You were born with a penis. You were born with sexual desire. You were born enjoying touching and playing with yourself, and yet somehow that is wrong. Instead, can we perhaps take a step back? Can we just let go of all the trappings of society and religion and all these things we've been told, which I know I'm asking a very large feat for us to let go of all that stuff, but join me on this journey, if you will. Imagine if I said to you, hey, your connection to spirit, your connection to divinity is an inherent part of you. You can never be severed from consciousness, God, the universe, Gaia, whatever you want to call her. There is nothing about you that is inherently wrong or broken. In fact, every part of you is divine. Every part of you is beautiful and meaningful. And you should celebrate every part of you. What would it be like if we imagined a spiritual tradition where you as you are holy, sacred, and powerful, including your sexual bits? Because, well, frankly, when we experience sexual pleasure and when we experience sex with another person, I think it's one of the ways we most experience divine ecstasy in this life. The state of God consciousness in many different traditions is one described as being ecstatic, meaning we've transcended mind, we've transcended thought, and we've moved into this space of unending bliss. Where do we, as human beings, experience that daily. Some of us daily, some of us weekly, some of us not so often, sometimes a few times a day, who knows. But orgasm, sex, masturbation, all these things that we do that generate pleasure in ourselves. I mean, think about this. When you're experiencing a state of orgasm, you're not thinking about hate for other people, you're not thinking about that person who did you wrong, you're not thinking about how you want to get revenge. No, you're in a state of oneness and connection with the world around you, and joy and ecstasy and kindness and pleasure. Like, that is the state of divinity. And where do we experience more directly the power of God, the power to create new life, but in the generation of new life through sexual congress? What if we saw that our bodies weren't something to be covered and hidden and shamed for, but instead this amazing gift that does all these wonderful things and carries us around and is beautiful and holy and sacred? What if we saw the pleasure we're able to derive from these bodies, sexual or not, as an experience of God, an experience of divinity, experience of life itself? What if we grew up hearing, you are whole, you are perfect, you are a manifestation of divine consciousness here on this planet, and there's nothing you could ever do to be any less than that? Would our world be a little less crazy today? A little less broken, a little less hateful? Brene Brown has this wonderful quote that you cannot shame someone ever into lasting change, but you can shame someone into hating themselves. And especially if you're a member of the LGBTQ family, you learn that shame early on and very strongly. But even if you're not, we're still taught sexual negativity, body negativity from a very early age. But I believe these bodies are meant to be celebrated. I believe they're meant to be cherished. I believe they're meant to be seen as divine gifts. And yes, including our penises and vaginas. Yes, including our juicy, sexy, blah, 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 sort of bits. Because, and many different traditions have their own versions of explaining this, but just think back to the beginning of creation. At the beginning of creation, there was nothing, or a single point, right? A big bang, God, whatever you want to call it. But there's a single point of consciousness, and that consciousness then explodes into the universe that we know, and the worlds, and the planets, and the suns, and the oceans that we experience. Every single thing that's created comes from that same source. There's quite literally nothing in creation that didn't come from that initial impetus moment. Therefore, how could anything that is created be any less a part of that original seed? How could you be any less God than any other creature or thing that exists on this or any world? You can't be. We are all made of God, through God, by God, and I use God as a word that's easy to understand, but you could easily say consciousness, life force, the oneness, creation, however you want to call it. You are inherently beautiful. You are inherently joyful, and you should be celebrating this. And yes, you should be having lots of wonderful sex, and you should be celebrating your body through masturbation, and yes, you should be talking to your penis and telling it how beautiful it is and how much you enjoy it, and thank you for bringing all this pleasure and joy to my life. Because these lives are gifts, these bodies are gifts. Pleasure we experience, the pain we experience, the growth we experience, all of it is a gift. And when we can cultivate that awareness, that sense of gratitude, everything, then we'll live in an amazing world. Because so many people nowadays are so ungrateful. They complain about everything. They feel so insufficient. They are always going out to buy the newest cottage cheese or video game or cell phone in the hopes that it will make them feel better. But the truth is, you already have everything inside of you. You are whole, perfect, and complete, if only you remember it. And we need to surround ourselves with individuals who see that and believe it. To surround ourselves with individuals who celebrate our divinity, to celebrate our perfection, to say, I see God in you, I see life in you, I see love in you, rather than saying you're wrong and broken because you are blank. Imagine a world where, because everybody feels perfect and holy in themselves, they see it in another. Imagine a world where kindness, generosity, love, forgiveness were the norm because we see the perfection in each being, rather than harbor jealousy and insatisfaction because of our feelings of lack. What if we designed a more organic and natural sort of spiritual path that said, you are worthy, you are whole, enjoy this life because it is a gift. You are a gift. Everything you've been given is a gift. And to see the miracle and to see the gratitude in it all. I'm Kalen. This is Ecstatic Self. Thank you for your time.